Hello and welcome to May the 4th be with you today. We have Mayor Mike Smith with us. Hello, Mike. Hello and welcome. Just like to say a big sorry because we forgot, or the system did, forget to put up Aylesbury Mayor Mike Smith's mic level. Well, that was a bit of a tongue twister. Do apologise to you and the audience, Mike Smith and Aylesbury Town Council. So do accept those sincere apologies. All you missed in those 3 minutes and 28 seconds was the laugh we had about the title sequence. Didn't know because it's May the 4th we were going to do that. Easy fun, it's quite funny. And we got into the sad facts about the coronavirus and the death toll. So in those 3 minutes and 28, that's all you really missed. We're sorry we had to edit. We don't like to do that, but unfortunately we did because we needed you to let you know, because you didn't want to watch for 3 minutes 28 him being quiet, because I'm sure a load of you would have tried to think something was wrong with your PC and try and fix it. But don't forget, we try our best to make sure it's always live and it's always out there for you to watch live. So do follow us, like us, retweet us, whatever, on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube and Instagram. So many titles now, or so many platforms for us to keep updated and engage with the audience, as they say. So once again, thanks a lot for watching. Please continue. Do let us know your comments and stay safe. And may the 4th be with you. But I'll bring you straight back. We'll be able to hear you anyway. So let's just do that. So, I mean, obviously the government was going on about the 5 tests, which we have to kind of tick before we remove ourselves from lockdown. Sufficient capacity to provide critical care, obviously, sustain a consistent fall in the daily numbers, reliable data to show that the rate of infection is decreasing to manageable levels across the board, operational challenges including testing and obviously PPE, which is a big thing that happened obviously in the press over the last week about the PPE and the panorama thing, and comment that any adjustments to the current measures will not risk a second peak. Now the second peak is something that we will obviously talk about. Let's have a look here. The numbers, obviously driving's up a bit. They're a bit worried about that. What was your thing on that, about the driving?
Yeah, I think it's been getting busy, not busy compared to what we used to, but since the lockdown started, I think the weekend was about the busiest time on the roads in general, and some of that may well be legitimate reasons, but then you hear news stories about people driving from Kent to Cornwall for a quick weekend away, which clearly isn't a necessary journey. And yeah, we still need to be quite tough on things like that.
I think we do. Driving quite far away is not on. I mean, it's if you break down, you're putting the breakdown services in harm's way as well. I covered this a couple of weeks ago, about 3 or 4, such a long time ago, I think 5 weeks ago now actually, where the AA guy I was speaking to, I broke down, my petrol pipe had gone or whatever, and he said most of the cases he dealt with were actually, well, if anything, none of them were key workers or, the NHS or care workers, and that's a very worrying point of view. I mean, he's thinking, I'm going to go out there and make sure that we get our frontline staff to their place of work, or make sure and recover them safely. And mostly he's dealing with people on a day trip, which is, and of course I was delivering food. I was being a nice person and delivering food. I wasn't on a jolly. Just like to stress that. But it is a weird one, isn't it? It's people shooting off down wherever they want to go. Like an hour drive for a 5-minute walk in the countryside is not on.
No, they've relaxed things a bit on that. I think you can take a short drive to go for a long walk, but certainly not the other way around.
Yeah, that's definitely been the drive from the government. I think they've said that in quite a few press conferences. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the. Make sure I still got your sound. Yes, I have. Obviously, daily tests. So, I mean, they hit their 100,000 mark. Did you find that a surprise, or are you a bit like, what would you take on that one?
I have to say I'm a bit sceptical about that. I think up to now, politicians on different sides have been working together and singing from the same hymn sheet, but there was to be so short of their target with a couple of days to spare, then suddenly not just hit it but smash it, and then drop back under it for the following couple of days, suggests, a bit of jiggery-pokery. And when you hear that actually the number of tests counted was those that had been sent out, not those that had been completed and got a result, which most of us would say what we understand to be a test is a test that's been carried out and the person's got a result, the health service has got a result that it can act on. And also where people were required to have 2 tests for whatever reason, that counted as 2 rather than 1. I would say it should be the number of people that have been tested that really is important. So, a bit disappointed by that. I'd rather the government said, we set an ambitious target, we got close to it, but we didn't quite get there, and that's because things are quite difficult to do at the moment, but we'll keep trying. It just felt a bit like old style politics, a bit of spin going on there, which I don't like to see.
Yeah, in these times, it's a bit unfortunate. I mean, I'm under the same idea. How can you all of a sudden go whoop and then boom? Not good, and it's a shame because in this moment of crisis, we would have thought they're trying. I mean, they keep on saying they're trying to be as transparent as they can be, and then they do that. It's a bit. I mean, the PPE thing with the panorama, that was an interesting one. I covered off with, and he said Mike Smith, not you, with Greg Smith, and there's a lot of Smiths around at the moment. I said about the HCID, I don't know, way before the panorama thing. And I see, anything else sort of reasons why it was moved from a HCID to an IPC, and he just said it was mortality rate, which that's everything I found to be fair. But panorama picked on that and carried it through with PPE. And I think if they would have been up front to say, look, we hadn't done this, we haven't done that, nobody would have. They would have understood. I think cost cutting in the NHS is something that the Conservatives do. And, it's one of those things anybody would do, I suppose, if they got to save money in somewhere along the lines, and gowns and masks. Nobody could have predicted this was going to happen unless you're somebody who works in the antibody area who starred on like Centivax and Jacob Glanville, when they said the pandemic, there will be one. But really, it's a bit of a weird one when you think, be up front with the people, stop doing the cloak and dagger, and you'll be respected more. But that's
I agree with you, Martin.
Yeah. Let's have a look. Let's move on quickly. Because I thank you for your time as well, obviously. We had new cases. Again, that's how many they've done, how many. I mean, the testing. I mean, we're at a few 100,000 now, aren't we? Obviously, of how many people have been tested. We're at what, 4,000. We also got this is obviously the numbers in the hospital or people in the hospital. That's gone down, and the southeast is, definitely on the way down as well, which is good news to hear. I don't know what's this bit. There we go. Critical care beds, obviously that's increasing, except for in Northern Ireland, that seems to be going up. So seems to be a problem there in Northern Ireland. It is one of those things when you see it going up in one area, not in another, where you think, what's going on? Why is that spreading? Are people not taking thought of the distancing rules, for instance?
Could be just there are chance factors at play, the way society is organised may play a part. So we had the very quick climb towards a peak in London compared to everywhere else, but also a much more rapid drop, whereas the curve has been a little bit flatter in other places and lagging behind, if you like, the peak being reached and then the downward curve. Yeah. It's the kind of thing where we kind of know how pandemics work in a very general sense, but this one in particular is clearly very different to anything we've faced in recent years. And there's little bits of guesswork involved, and we don't get everything right.
Yeah, I mean, how can you get anything totally right? I mean, since 1918 was the last massive pandemic, so how can you get it right? I'm trying to be fair and keep my book open, and not trying to be biased in one way or the other. I'm trying to see how things can be, and could we have foreseen? I mean, unless you watch Pandemic on Netflix, you probably wouldn't even be on your radar. And after a certain amount of time watching that sort of thing, it definitely fades off. Yeah, it's a weird one. I tell you what, I did notice just looking at those figures is the northeast and Yorkshire as well. I mean, they went above London. Oh, yeah, they went above London, and now they're on the decline now, which is good to hear. But is that people going to their second home or a holiday home? It's an interesting one. That I think there was a lot going on about that on the news the other day. People doing that. I mean, the Isle of Wight have now got or will be going live with the track and trace, and they were saying about, are they going to lift lockdown for them, and they said no, but they did say that they've the ferry companies are really working hard to make sure that people aren't just coming over into their holiday homes, because obviously there's quite a few over there in caravans, people trying to get away. So, well, we're going to self-isolate in our caravan or in our nice holiday home. So it's good that they're doing that as well. But what's the last slide that the government had? I can't remember. Oh, it's the curve, obviously. Sorry, going a bit quick there. 7-day rolling average. Yeah, it's what's under 600, is it? It looks like. Oh, just above 600. Which is,
yeah, I mean, but still fluctuating from day to day, and always get that dip at the weekend and then picking up during the week. And if you look towards the middle and end of last week, there were still days where there were 600 and 700 cases a day, and that's 600-700 deaths, families being affected, hundreds of people dying that wouldn't have died if this virus wasn't about. And that really brings it home that it's still something we need to be very concerned about.
Yeah, I totally agree. It very, very well noticed. Maybe it's the accountant in you, but yes, it's there is that thing about the weekend. And I've worked in the public sector for a hospital, and I do know that on the weekends the clerks aren't there, and they deal with it when they come back. So obviously there's a catch up as well. It may take like 48 hours. So you're talking about the Tuesday, or maybe so obviously for reporting reasons, probably the Wednesday before the real figures from the weekend come in, which is this port, at this time. Is the hospital going to make people come in extra just for those reporting figures? I don't know. I mean, for now, it doesn't really matter. But I suppose if those numbers kept on climbing, I suppose that would be a very important thing, maybe, that they would need to keep well on top to see what they could do.
Indeed, yeah.
So the last one, United States still going up. It looks like we're kind of hitting that flat line there. It's showing all settings. We've gone above Italy, Spain and France, which is quite sad, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is. And I suppose questions will need to be asked at some point. Was our response the right one? Was it quick enough? But for me, the important question now is not what have we done so far and was it right or was it wrong, but what do we do next to keep it under control and keep that curve on the downward side.
Yeah, I mean the lockdown measures obviously are working, and people are most or a vast majority of people are staying within their confines of their home and only going out for emergency. Well, not emergency reasons, but priority reasons for like shopping. It is an interesting one. I do find it pretty interesting. There's a lot going on, especially from the press, about reopening up. And the government is fending back by saying, not at the moment. But I do think they're feeling pressured to lift the lockdown so people are happy so to speak, or the press is going to be happy. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, there was quite a lot on the TV, the little bit that I caught today about workplaces opening up again and public transport, but still with social distancing. And I think there's probably a lot of pressure, particularly from the press, saying, well, people have put up with this for 6-7 weeks now, cut them some slack, give them a bit of opportunity to be a bit more normal again. But it's got to be driven by the science. If that's not the right thing to do, however good it feels for a while, if that leads to a second peak or more deaths than there need to be, then that will prove to be the wrong decision. And it's very hard to get that across to people when they're feeling frustrated and bored by everything and wanting to see other people. But by all means, if the science says you can do that and other measures that you keep in place will keep it under control, I'll be delighted to see that. But I want it to be scientific rather than politically driven or driven by the media's agenda.
Totally agree. I mean, driving stuff, I mean, political powers and obviously media, they tie up so well that I do really have that worry, and scientific is the way to go, without a doubt. Just let things settle, let things go down. I mean, the numbers are going down, so why, with this sudden push to do this, it's wrong, I personally think, and it sounds like you do too. I mean, it's interesting what you said about, for instance, last time we chatted was the tip opening. So it seems like after our chats, the government, I think, plays with our thoughts and our chats, and they come up with new ideas, like the cemetery was one of them, and now the tip. They're talking about opening up the tips, which will be very interesting, so that people can actually get... I think they copied exactly what you said the other week, to be fair.
Well, I won't claim credit for that, if credit is the right word, but clearly that message is coming through that, and I think in Buckinghamshire, they're talking about reopening 5 of the waste sites, not all of them. Obviously, I think they'd struggle to fully staff them and maintain social distancing. So I believe they're waiting for some sort of final directive from government to say, you can do this. And I think it's going to be next week, possibly end of this week, that a number of them will be reopening. And I'm sure that will be good news for quite a few people who've had plenty of time to clear out their loft and clear out their garden and got stuff to get rid of. And I'm glad that people are holding on to it and waiting for the tip to reopen rather than fly tipping. And we know a lot of that's happening. I've seen some horrifying pictures of really beautiful spots in rural Wales with lorry loads of stuff that's just been taken and dumped,
Really?
which is
I've not seen that.
appalling.
That's wrong, so wrong. But again, with the chart, I mean, this is something I will cover off at some other point, but the charging of the tip, I know that a lot of people spoke to me about that, and they're not happy that they have to pay. And it was obvious this is going to cause this idea of people fly tipping. It's the minority who go through and don't, go through the commercial channels. That they'll clean out somebody's house and then they'll go, right, I'm not gonna, they get paid to say £50, extra to obviously get rid of the rubbish correctly, and they don't. They just fly tip it. But in this case, they were going to the council, I believe, normal household recycling plant. And not in a work van, and then they were obviously tipping. I think that's another reason the council done what they did. But it's still it's a bit like unfair, I think, on the people, because they pay the council tax, and then they have now got to pay to get rid of their stuff. That's what I'm hearing from a lot of people. They're not happy about that. But
I don't think anyone was happy about that. Well, aside from the political party that runs the county council, but we won't get into the politics of it. But I think the worry was that, yes, they needed to save money in their budget, and this was a short-term saving, but the long-term costs will come back to bite them, because clearing up fly tipping, pursuing prosecutions of people, that all costs money. And I don't condone fly tipping. there's no excuse to go out and commit a crime, as well as it's a crime and an environmental crime as well.
It's a crime against the environment.
It's something that's going to happen, and the cost is not worth the short-term savings. So I very much hope for a rethink on all of that.
Maybe once the stats come in, or the financial figures, maybe that's something I could look into and maybe chat to a few people about. Again, it's still after Martin Tett. I will get him at one point.
I think he could give you answers to a lot of questions like that. Well, he may not give you answers, but I think he's the person to ask those questions.
That's why I want to get him on here. But he doesn't. Well, I left it with their team. They said they'll get back to me, but they still haven't. And I have been pursuing quite a few other avenues on stuff that's outside of this county. I'm afraid it's all around the world. So I've been really busy. What else have I got down on my list of things? First of all, do you know the numbers for Buckinghamshire? Going back to the sad stats of deaths. I mean, I have down as coming up on the screen now, as of the 3rd of May, because I've got my figures from yesterday, was 845 cases in Buckinghamshire. 2,465 have died in the southeast. But how many have died in the Buckinghamshire area? Is there an update to that?
I've seen various figures on that. I think at some point last week I saw a figure of 60-something deaths in Bucks. But just today, I think in the last couple of days, I saw it today, the Bucks Herald had some figures which said that in the Aylesbury Vale area, there have been 45 deaths with coronavirus as the cause, or quoted on the death certificate. So that would suggest that there are more deaths in Aylesbury Vale than in other parts of Bucks, which is would be very sad if that was the case.
So definitely wear a mask, I would think, after our last chat a couple of weeks ago. So that also brings me back to that, actually. Did you do that? Did you make a mask?
I haven't made one yet. No, I've been watching various YouTube videos about making masks out of socks and other pieces of cloth that you're going to have around the house, but I haven't actually. Very fetching indeed.
Yes, I did make one. I also made a little video as well about it. So I thought, there you go. That'll win me the prize.
Thank you.
I thought I might go shopping with that one. So, so you looked at a few videos, and did you watch the Surgeon General from the US, the one that I put up on there?
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah. So I'm still in two minds about masks and whether they are effective in terms of, if you've got coronavirus, they're effective in stopping you passing it on. If you haven't, it's less clear as to whether they are a defence, and social distancing and all the other measures are far more effective. So, as I think we've said before, the worry is that people put a mask on, they go out, think, I'm protected, and then maybe don't keep the distance as much as they should, and that leads to it being counterproductive. But I'm still willing to listen to the different aspects of this.
I've been following Dr. Jacob Glanville of Distributed Bio. I've been trying to get an interview with him. I mean, they've got a cure, so to speak, which is interesting. But he had a little conversation with regards to wearing a mask. You know, he was asked this question in one of his interviews that was, would you recommend a mask? And he actually came back with, actually, yes. And he said this reasons why: A, it reduces the distance and obviously protects you a little bit. It reduces, the transmission distance. But also, the biggest problem we've got with a virus is touching your face. We are so, especially when you record yourself, like especially on wonderful interviews like this, you start to see that you touch yourself and quite.
I did myself.
Yeah, and he said having a mask on actually stops you from doing. Yes, you can be complacent, as in, I'm okay, I'm wearing a mask, but actually from touching yourself, it can actually reduce, because obviously you have to touch the mask, and then you either throw or wash the mask, whatever, depending on what sort of mask you have, and then you wash your hands. So actually, you've actually stopped directly touching your face, because it does actually work. So interesting that different people are saying different. I mean, our UK government, doctors are saying, oh, they don't think it really helps that much, and a lot of the outside world are saying different. They are saying wear masks. It does protect. It does reduce the distance. And I mean, we talked about this a month ago. I mean, when I first brought it to your attention, and I said about it, and creating these masks are, again, we don't want to stop the NHS, especially after the panorama thing, getting their PPE. I mean, I'll say care workers as well, because I've had quite a few conversations with people who work in the private care sector. And we say it's private, should really be under NHS, but that's another story. But they do need their protection. I mean, they are literally, they don't even know whether a person has COVID. And buying up a whole load of PPE, I mean, it's not even cheap on Amazon or whatever there is out there that people may look for. But personally, I wear my mask to protect everybody else. I know that the chances of me being protected is pretty much negligent, but if I cough, sneeze, or whatever, it will not go as far. And there is an interesting video out there that came out of this next topic discussion that had a whole lot of scientists that I watched the other day, which was about 7-8 hours long. And they said about this video that I found while watching this this talk thing, and it is scary how much actually travels around a room. And after watching that, it does make, when somebody sneezes, coughs. I mean, one of the things when you're wearing a mask as well, may I just state, is you cough into your elbow, even if you're wearing a mask, because that's it has more push and that reduces it. But this video I watched. It will make you think when you walk into a room and somebody sneezes, even if it's at the other end, how it just goes round. It's pretty scary, really. I might at some point.
Yeah.
Sorry. Definitely not something to watch before you have your dinner, or maybe after. Give it a good couple of hours. So anyway, well, maybe next time you can do your face mask. Now that I proved that I'd done my one, I also did another one, by the way. I actually used half the fabric and created a nice little FBL one, which did seem to fit better. I did do a little video as well. Did you want to see a little bit of the video? You probably don't. Let's have a look. What else? Do you want to see a little bit of the video? I sent it out.
Yeah.
You sure? Oh, okay. It might be a little bit slow because it all uses the same hard drive. Let's see if it'll work. US General Surgeon, or Surgeon General, sorry. If it does play. Sets out, which you should see a video about. Oh, doesn't want to play. There we go. Live technology. I think it's because it all sits on the same hard drive. That was a bit of a sad one. I'd like to go on to the Aylesbury Food Bank. Did you know if they got their vehicle? Or, I mean, I was going to contact them.
I don't think they have, but thanks for your help in publicising that. As it happens, I went there today to drop off some food donations and a cash donation as well, and I think they're still using their little van that they had before. So it would really increase the reach of their service if they could get hold of a 3-seater van, ideally on a permanent basis. And if not, on a loan basis for the time being. So just anyone out there who's got a van they're not using at the moment, please get in touch with the food bank.
Okay, well, I'll see what I can do. So maybe I can push something else out there to try and help. That is really sad. Maybe I need to get the Frankie the camper van up and running so that I can actually go there and do do a video session and try and publicise it, or maybe I'll just get them on here. Maybe that's a safer thing with social distancing. I don't know if the law is the same for companies that broadcast, whether or not we don't have to actually stick to the adherence of staying at home. But I do have the technology now to get out there, or nearly have. Right, we have also youth concern. How's that getting on? They obviously had issues last time, obviously because of the social distancing and.
Yeah, I know that they're still providing their service through social media and email and phone counselling. And there's as much need as ever. Young people, particularly suffering mental health difficulties. It's happening more and more with lockdown and just the disruption to lifestyle. So they are continuing to provide that service as well as they can.
That's a good point, actually. And again, it does, because I'm quite sidetracked in everything that I'm trying to do and speak to people all over the world and try and get some information and try and get some interviews. I do get sidelined, even with my own children. I got to admit, it is a thing that, like I'm sure Youth Concern and so the other charities out there, they must obviously be getting quite a few phone calls with people who are distressed at this time, because mental health is a big thing, and I can imagine it causing a few stress, especially on families at this time.
Yeah, well, if a family particularly doesn't get on that well with each other, and then they're forced to stay in the same space for longer periods of time, that adds to the stress. And there's potentially a lot to think about, and people are going to struggle with that. Another one I'd like to mention, because I've been looking into this over the past few days, is dementia. And the reason for that is that Aylesbury Town Council has kind of tried to be in the forefront of promoting dementia awareness throughout the town. We train what's called dementia champions that educate schools, colleges, businesses on the best and most effective ways to deal with situations when you're dealing with someone with dementia. And some of it's quite simple and straightforward, but it doesn't always occur to those of us who haven't got that issue. How confusing life can be if you're living with dementia. And particularly now, routines are disrupted. People can't do what they want to do and go where they want to be, and people can't have visits from relatives that sort of help to sort of anchor their memories, because there's someone they're familiar with that they're seeing on a regular basis. So the Alzheimer's Society, I know, are very busy with calls from people who are looking after someone with dementia, or maybe starting to worry about how things are affecting them and maybe their own memory. They're a little bit concerned. So the whole mental health world is in overdrive at the moment, and it's brought a focus on mental health issues that is probably long overdue. And having mental health treated with the same seriousness as physical health, somewhere we should have been a long time ago, but we are now starting to get there.
Yeah, there's a lot of more money should be put into the system for mental health. I think that's been said for the last few years. And the dementia, we used to have a neighbour who had dementia, and tried to help out and see what I could do, and eventually it got a lot worse, and she was taken into care. But it must be very hard on families who are dealing with people with dementia, because obviously they're going to forget about what is actually going on and not understand. Just like young children as well, I suppose they don't always understand what's going on. But with dementia, that's a big thing. One of the things I experienced with the dementia of my next door neighbour was her walking out and just up the road, and having to go and actually bring her back because the carers, I can't go after her. You're like, okay, then I'll go and get her, because obviously she's not aware of what she's doing. Luckily, I had a good rapport with her before it became really severe. So, yeah, very well mentioned. I got to admit that is something that does need to be, highlighted. Obviously, we can probably put a number up, or obviously just look it up online, and that can direct people in the right way. But you're hearing a lot regarding dementia charities, then, are you?
Yeah, and mental health generally. But I think with Dementia Awareness Week coming up later this month, the town council would have been very much promoting that, and I'd have been out and about attending events, thanking carers, and awarding certificates to people who've passed their dementia awareness training. So we're trying to highlight that in a slightly different way, because it's still vitally important, even though we can't achieve the sort of personal contact that we would have been normally aiming to do.
Okay. Well, hopefully once the lockdown's finished, it's something that maybe the Aylesbury Town Council, I don't know, can maybe move the times around, or...
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of activities and events that we've been hoping to have over these few months that we would like to schedule in for later in the year, if we can. In particular, fundraising events for Youth Concern that I planned to do. I know that the people of the town have been very generous so far, and I'm sure will have helped Youth Concern with some substantial amounts when I think that figure might be announced later this month or the beginning of next month. But if there's a chance to top up the coffers with a bit of extra towards the end of the year, then I'll certainly be keen to do that.
Okay. So do Youth Concern get any money from the government, or is it literally just solely on donations?
I think I'm not entirely certain, but I think it's mainly from donations. I don't know whether any of the local authorities or the government give them any direct help, but that's not unusual. There are many, many charities that you think of as they must get some money from the government. It's such an important thing. Surely they do, but actually they don't. And one of the prime examples there is hospices. Everyone thinks hospices are NHS funded. In fact, only a tiny proportion of their funding comes from the NHS. It's nearly all donations. And you think, the wonderful care that hospices give, and the time and the resource they have to put into not just giving the physical care, but the understanding and dealing sympathetically with the people that go into hospices as well as their families. That's tremendous work, and it costs a lot of money that nearly all comes from voluntary donations. So there's a lot of parts of this country that really are funded on charity, and sometimes you think that doesn't feel right, but it's wonderful that people are so generous to be able to enable that to happen.
Do you think after the coronavirus we need to seriously look at the way money is used and abused in one way, if you want to take my aspect on it, but things like hospices, like you're saying, and Youth Concern and dementia, there is so much about, everything, you go uptown, you go anywhere, it's about people saying, can you give some money to this charity, that charity? It does make you think that why isn't enough money being given to obviously certain charities, or they become part of the NHS or whatever. I don't know how they will do it, but with this virus, the amount of money that's been borrowed, I suppose, from the World Bank, again, I'm not really educated into that, so I even looked into, and where does the World Bank get its money from? It's an interesting one, that, when you start to dig around. But what is going on? I mean, a lot said about taxes. People don't want to pay too much in taxes, but they're probably affected by all the things that you've just talked about. If you had family, and obviously you've got older family and dementia, there's quite a lot that goes on that is not part of the ring fence money that goes into the NHS. It does what it does, but how this does help people. I mean, the hospice, take for instance the Nightingale Hospice. My friend's wife died of cancer, and his daughter did this charity event where they done dancing, and I mean, they said, could we live stream it for them, which we did. We did it obviously for free. We did that because obviously we knew her mum and my mate's wife, but you know, and they've done a great show, shall I say. But it does make you think, all this money we're now borrowing. I mean, we're talking billions of pounds, but we've never borrowed billions of pounds or put the taxes up to pay for all these parts of society that does actually need proper funding, but it's left to charity. And I do think governments do sit there and go, well, actually that can be dealt with by the public if they want to pay into doing it, and I don't think it's exactly right. And I mean, one of the things I said to Greg Smith was, at the end of all this, hopefully people will understand spending more time with their family is very important, and companies allow people to work from home more so that they can actually spend more time rather than travelling an hour to work and an hour back, especially if they work in London. I only use that as an example, but I'm sure up north, if they have to travel into Manchester or Birmingham, I mean, just driving through Birmingham, you know how busy it is, and also up north. So, you know, and people jump on planes and have to go to meetings for an hour or two. Maybe that will change in post.
There could be some really good things that come out of this in the future, such as you say, people working from home, not needing to travel and clog up the roads or trains or buses, not have the stress of travelling. It could be good for companies because they wouldn't need to maintain large offices on a permanent basis. It gives people time and flexibility to spend more time with their families or meet their personal commitments rather than just being driven by work with everything else squeezed in around it as best they can. So hopefully we won't return to exactly what we used to regard as normal in every way. We'll start to look afresh at things like that and say, well, we've shown we can work in a different way. Okay, it's not perfect, but things are getting done, and let's trust people to work that way, and they'll probably be more productive as well as have happier, more balanced lives. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it sounds great to me. There is a thing. Have you been to Australia?
Not yet. I have a trip to Australia planned for October, but whether it's going to happen,
okay,
remains to be seen.
I'll definitely say that. Whether or not the obviously flight company is still actually running, they've got a thing over there. So I went over there years ago, and we live to work, but they work to live. That's how they. And when you're over there, they do say, you know, us English, they say, you know, you pommies or whatever, you live to work. You don't work to live. And staying out there for a couple of months, I got used to. I mean, most of them live around the outer of Australia, you know, next to the sea. You don't live inland. And it was interesting to see how relaxed they are and how. God, admit, I'd love to live there. It's one of those things where you just go, yeah, I mean, that's how I reassessed quite a few things in my life after being out there for a few months. It was interesting that, and when you get back here, and it was interesting, my friend said to me, when you get back, Martin, because I'd been away for 3 months, when you get back, everything will be the same, but everybody will think that it's different. They will tell you the same stories they said when you left 3 months ago, because it's all just part of the grind. So I found it very interesting that when I came back, it's exactly what happened. It was people telling me, "Oh, I've done this, I've done that, I've done that," and it was a bit like, really, they really, work orientated. And don't get me wrong, if you're going to do a job, do it properly. I mean, hopefully, I do a good enough job in what I do, and trying to prove that fact. But working 24/7, not seeing your family, it's not right. And also, there's a problem with obviously jobs and everything out there as well. So it's like the retirement age has gone up to 70, isn't it? I think it's 70 now.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why are the older generation told that they must work an extra 5 years for retirement when there's not enough jobs out there? It's a weird one. If unemployment is up, I mean, especially now it's up, but just intriguing. We should be trying to make life, you work, you earn money. If anything, retirement should be coming down so that we have a better quality of life later on. We don't just have to play golf then, we can go sailing. Maybe that's another thing we can do.
Yeah.
But
for a long time we were being told that automation would take over everyone's jobs, and our big worry would be how to use all our leisure time. But it does feel like we're working harder and longer hours and for a longer number of years. So there's something in the balance of things that isn't quite right in all of that.
it's a good point about automation. You are right. We were supposed to be totally automated. But is it a cost thing? Is it... I suppose your major, for instance, I suppose, building cars and planes and everything, that's probably more automated, isn't it? But I mean, Japan must be a more ultimate place to go to actually work out whether or not something can be automated. That's one of those countries on my list of places I must go, is Japan. So that interesting one, that automation. We'll see. We'll pick that up another time. There was one thing before I forget. The 75th anniversary of VE Day coming up. Now, I know there was a few things Aylesbury Town Council had down because they pop up in my diary and I go, no, that's been cancelled. Anything planned from the Aylesbury Town Council?
Well, the day itself, the bank holiday, is coming up this Friday, which is...
Good point. It's not on a Monday.
Holiday, so we won't have to go to work, or I'll be in the same place but not working. But I am going to the War Memorial in the cemetery to lay a wreath, because it's important to mark the not just the celebration but the sacrifices that got us to that place of peace and safety in 1945. I know that people had originally planned to have street parties. Now there's a new twist on that, where people are decorating their homes and going out onto their front drives and having their own sort of mini outdoor street party at a distance and waving to their neighbours. I think there's a number of streets that are planning to do that, and that's a great idea.
That is fabulous. Because, I didn't even have a clue. That's why this is why I need this catch up. If I didn't have this catch up, I wouldn't even know. That's a great idea. I think that
stay-at-home street parties are becoming quite a thing.
Right. Okay. All right then. We'll have to publicise that one a bit, won't we? That's a. So what is it? Is it what they're just putting banners up and everything and?
Yeah, banners, Union Jack, bunting. I'm sure some people will dress up in 1945 costumes and go the whole hog. But it's just some way of sort of marking that very important day with other people, but not with other people, subject to the current rules. It's just sort of a way of having that connection with people while you're remembering.
Do you know, I'm so glad we had this interview because I would never have thought about that. Never would have in a month of Sunday because I'm too busy trying to do a few other things. But that is very interesting to know. Is there anything else the Aylesbury Town Council might be doing? Obviously, you're laying a wreath, which is obviously lovely. Is there going to be anything done uptown? Obviously, like closed doors sort of thing. I don't know.
I don't think it's possible under the current rules to have any sort of event that would potentially, ideally, an event we would want it to be something that would attract people. But if it attracts people, then you've got social distancing issues, and is it a necessary journey to come into town for that purpose? So we are continuing to play it very, very safe, not have an event if there's any doubt whatsoever, which is still the position that we feel we're in and will be for a little while longer.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad we got that cleared up, just in case people thought something might be going on in town, because people might obviously want to pay respects and obviously maybe celebrate. But again, another thing we'll probably have to deal with after the lockdown. So it'll be interesting.
Indeed. Martin, can I just mention one other thing, that it's not something the town council as a body are doing, but I know many of our councillors are, and our staff members as well, are doing a lot of work on a voluntary basis, helping the NHS with transport, helping to manufacture and distribute PPE, and a number of us are just phoning people in our communities where we've got contact details, particularly if we know people are older or living on their own, just a phone call to say, how are you doing? Is there any extra help you need? We can point you to all the services and all the groups that are out there. Some people just ask for a bit of shopping to be brought round. Others, all kinds of things come up. Yesterday I phoned somebody who phoned me back today and said, I've got this problem, my drain's blocked in my bathroom sink. And he's a tenant of the housing trust, and he phoned them up and they said, well, we can come round in a week. And I can understand that, because they're going to be short-staffed as well, and they've probably got jobs that will be higher priority. And he said, all I probably need is a bottle of that Mr. Muscle drain unblocker, but I can't leave the house because he's a vulnerable person. So I looked under my sink, and sure enough, I've got a bottle of it, 3/4 full. So I whiz round, drop it on his doorstep. He just give me a call back 2 hours later. I've done it, it's worked, you've sorted my problem. And that's a very small thing to do, but it made a big difference to him. And so many people are doing just those small little favours, or even you might phone someone and they just want another human being to talk to. They haven't got any issues, they just fancy a chat and a bit of connection and company. And as local councillors, we can't do our normal things like going around knocking on doors or putting leaflets through doors. So we're just trying to make our contact with people through the means we have at our disposal. And to a lot of people, that is making a bit of a difference.
Is there a number they can...
There is, it's right on, if you go on the Buckinghamshire Council
You're gonna make me do
website, it's right on, I'm sure it's right on their front page. I've been reading it out to people all weekend long, and I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Let's have a look, shall we? On their main page, is it?
I'm pretty sure it's...
On the Buckinghamshire Council one, isn't it? Not the Aylesbury Town Council.
That's right, yeah.
Can't see anything jumping out at me, but I'm a typical bloke. Probably, I can't see it in front of me. It's got latest up local information. Let's click on there. That might be it. Oh, there's a 24-hour. I mean, it's not on their main page, but there is a number 01296. It says Buckinghamshire Council has a 24-hour phone number set up specifically for calls relating to coronavirus only. This is the number to call if you have any concerns about an extremely vulnerable person. So 01296 383 204. Or please use our customer service centre number, which is 01296 395 000.
Yeah, and I know that the Buckinghamshire Council are proactively phoning people back, some on a daily basis, some a couple of times a week, just to check in with them make sure they're all right. I think there's something like 1,200 vulnerable people getting that contact from the council on a regular basis, as well as many thousands of others who are getting the contact from volunteers or local councillors doing things off their own bats, just to make sure the community are aware that if they're struggling, there are sources of help, and they just need to reach out to try and find it, and we can put that help in their direction. Some things we can just do ourselves with a simple act of kindness. Others we can get the experts and the specialists if the help needed is a bit more involved.
Okay, well, I'll pass that information on. I'll see if I can whack something on my site and Twitter and God knows what else I update now. There's just so much. But yeah, the number 01296 395 000, which is their normal number, but the 01296 383 204, I think that's a new one I've not seen before. So
that's a special number for people who are
vulnerable,
struggling with coronavirus or self-isolation issues, or they're worried about a friend or a neighbour and just want to know, how can I get help for this person?
Yeah, I do know there's a couple of old people I've spoke to. They don't want to put me in the line of fire, I think is the word I'd say. Even though I say, I'm going to the shop, is there anything that you need? They say no. They don't feel like they're vulnerable, but then they've called back and said, is there a number? And I've said, well, if you need anything, just let me know. But it's interesting. I will put it up there and I'll see what I can do. It's an interesting one. And it's really nice to know that there is something out there for people who need this number, because I think I had a look around before. I couldn't really find anything that easy for them when they've asked me, and people comment and say stuff, and it's quite interesting. So well done again. You've been on. Did you have your Weetabix today? You've done quite well. You've done very well. Amazing. Is there anything else you need to add?
I don't think so at the moment. We always manage to cover a lot of ground, don't we, Martin? And I'm sure by the time we speak again, there'll be all kinds of other new things we can talk about or go back to, and developments.
Yeah, sorry, go on. I've interrupted.
No, just saying really, it's good to talk, and I hope people are finding these chats useful.
The take up isn't that mad. I'll give it that way. It's not like we've got a million people watching, but I do think people who do watch do pass it on to other people, and then they say something back to me. It's quite interesting. What I've started to do is doing snippets, because when people see like a long interview, they do think, oh, have I got time to? And I'll fit that in later, and they don't. So I've actually started doing snippets, especially with the MP Greg Smith. So obviously our time, or your time, is more important than mine, so to speak, obviously, because you're trying to do a mayor's job as well as your normal job. Same with Greg Smith, he's doing quite a lot. So do you hear that little ding that come through? I do apologise if you heard that. And also my cat's knocking on the window to come in, by the way. If that's what you can hear. I've got it silent, so I can't hear it. Maybe you do. But yeah, these snippets are quite good. People are picking into them, I think, because it's a certain specific thing that they're interested in, and so I do hope those snippets, and I'll do a little snippet of that, and I'll put some little jazzy stuff in with a phone number, and I'll put that. I create a little front screen as well, a little picture that goes on, what people can click on, so they'll have the number on there as well. So if I put anything that makes it a little bit more sexy and exciting, rather than just an hour of me droning on, I'm sure. Well, it's got my face on there, so unfortunately it's not going to be sexy, but yours is on there, so I'm sure that'll be better. So if I just put the thing on me, it might attract more people that way. So Mr. Mayor Mike Smith of the Aylesbury Town Council, I thank you for your time once again. Stay safe, and hopefully you'll have a face mask next time. I shall get that work underway, and I'll try and make it as attractive as the ones that you've come up with. I've got a clothes printing thing, so I did cheat a bit, to be fair. I was able to print mine. But thank you once again. Stay safe, and we'll catch you again, maybe in a week's time. Cheers. Bye for now.